we're now going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your help with the technology. For the Policy Committee meeting, May 19th, 2025, and I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you so much. I'm handing it right over to Ms. Aubrey Schuett as she will walk us through our student handbook, and with a lot of gratitude towards the committee that Aubrey works with, putting all of this work together into one student handbook. That's a major celebration for us. But with that, Aubrey, you want to take it over?
And I've also had the opportunity for the last, I want to say like 8 years, supporting the work of our district discipline committee. I'm going to try to call out the slides because I know that folks at home can see, just to kind of keep us on track. So as I talk through the changes to the handbook that the committee is recommending, certainly you will hear alignment to the district's core values of belonging, perseverance, and achievement, and then also focusing on those strategic priorities of finding means for purposeful family and community engagement, establishing equitable systems of support, and equitable policies, programs, and practices across our system. The next slide reviews the committee overview. So the purpose of the district committee is to review the student discipline procedures and the handbook and make sure that we're in alignment with current legislation and policy. The next slide highlights our committee members that support the work, and I'm certainly grateful for their participation. Some of our committee members have been part of the committee as long as I've been a part of the committee, and we had lots of new faces this year, so that was nice too. So really grateful for the time that they put in and their commitment and passion towards this work. It is also important to note that there was an additional committee of folks that came together to support the work related to attendance. So separate group of folks, but the recommendations are from both committees are evident in what we'll see today. Okay, our next slide highlights the layout improvements, and we're certainly hopeful that this will help with the communication and transparency of how things are being laid out. So we are shifting to a singular district handbook for ease of navigation, so families will not have to navigate an elementary handbook as opposed to a middle school or a high school handbook. The discipline procedures will not sit outside of that handbook. They're actually embedded right into the singular district handbook. We've got a beautiful revised cover, which will, I was hoping we'd be able to show, but maybe the folks at home can see, but it's wonderful, and I think it truly depicts who we are as a school community. We do have an improved navigation feature, so students and families will be able to, or staff will be able to click directly on the topic that they want to learn more about, and it will take them directly to that section. So they don't have to worry about looking for something or hunting for information. They'll be able to just click that link and it will go directly to that section of the handbook. And then we've got that direct alignment with the document that we use as a guide for the work, which is the Illinois Principals Association Model Student Handbook. So there's alignment too with that, which I think will help support the committee work as we move forward to ensure that we've got policy and procedure alignment there. Okay, our next slide, slide 7, starts to review the specific sections that were added to the handbook. So again, additional sections, so they were not present in the previous handbook, but then we're recommending be added for the handbook for the upcoming school year. So those sections include animals on school property, school volunteers, video and audio monitoring systems, students with food allergies. Slide 8 highlights equal opportunity and sex equity, faiths law notifications, emergency school closing procedures, attendance procedures, targeted school violence prevention program language. Slide 9 highlights the cell phone procedures, the student athlete concussions and head injury protocol, and the last additional section is the sex offender notification law. So again, those would be new sections that were added, that we're asking be added for this upcoming school year based on the Illinois Principal Association's Model Student Handbook recommendations. Slide 10, and I think it's just slide 10. Slide 10 highlights the sections of the current handbook that were updated for language adjustments. So our section that's specific to personal property, makeup work, Accelerated Placement Act, the high school graduation requirements, and then the prevention of and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment sections were updated to reflect new language recommendations based on the IPA or recommendations that were coming specifically from the attendance committee work. Are there any questions about what we've reviewed thus far? I know that was quick.
Sorry to interrupt, but the slides are not showing up on the stream either.
Okay,
As we thought, we can re-upload them at a later time.
perfect, thank you.
Can we go through just the cell phone procedures? Since that's gotten a lot of work effort around that this year and visibility.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay, so another group of people, lots of dedicated professionals, a lot of time has been spent. There were lots of listening sessions. I know Dr. Gordon facilitated a great process for coming together and really hearing voice from a lot of different stakeholders. I know you guys have been presented and heard information about that process previously. So what the handbook really highlights is that procedure document that was shared and kind of came as an outcome of that work. It starts by giving rationale as to why the work was done, and then it flows into what it will look like for each of the 3 different levels. That's
Sorry, I'm finding it. I'm not finding it. On 40,
page 48,
okay.
Yeah, it's
section
up there, right there.
6.120.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's okay. So that's that section down there with the bolded subtitles will be divided by the policy specific to EC5, and then the middle school policy overview for grades 6 through 8, and then high school, which is 9 through 12 plus, specific to limited access. And then on the following page, page 49, it has information specific to all levels, so that would be applicable to if an individual had a documented medical need, how as a system will respond to those, and then how administrators and educators will implement interventions and actions based on individual case-by-case basis situations.
When this gets posted out, the slides, are we able to add reference so people know exactly where to find them in the handbook?
This should be the table of contents,
There is.
right?
Yeah, I see that part, but it might be, never mind, that's fine.
Because they can click on it.
Yes.
What I think maybe what
I'm
you're
looking at is
alluding
the
to
red
like
line
the section
copy.
number.
Right, just because the red line copy doesn't, until it's approved, it doesn't show in the table of contents.
Yes, so for example, slide 7 says animals on school property. I could go into the slides and put like what the section number that aligns with exactly where it's at in the handbook.
Perfect, that's what I mean, just because the copy that we have right now that will be uploaded when it can be, it doesn't, it's the red line copy, it's the updating copy, so it's not, it doesn't show it, so it wouldn't necessarily show up. That would be much easier, I think, for people who had specific questions to see the details of the cell phone.
Sure, yep. That's
Awesome,
no
thank
problem.
you so much, I
Yeah,
appreciate
No
that.
problem. Any other questions or thoughts, ideas?
Ms. Hewitt, what happens after tonight? As the board moves this to the
Yep,
board
June.
table, what does that look like? If the board takes action in their June meeting, what are your next step and your committee's next steps?
Yep, so it will be on your agenda for the June. After review and approval there, then it would be posted at I think July 1, and then it becomes live and active and up on the websites for folks to have access to. So we're done as a committee as far as making any additional further recommendations. What you see is the final version.
How are the teachers and the team informed? of
This
the
is
changes?
this is an annual process. Working with members of the committee, working with the building principals, other stakeholders in the group, members of learning and teaching. Lots of folks have had insights into these changes and updates. So they will, if it's a big update, right, like we're doing a lot of work. Like a big area, they'll take the folks at the buildings will take that information and make sure that they highlight it. But it will be accessible to everybody, to all stakeholders.
And one of
in
the things that we
community.
do across our district and those beginning days with teachers in their buildings are review some of those big highlights from the handbook. Each principal. The cell phone one is absolutely going to be reviewed, talked about, discussed in multiple ways and iterations. And anything else that we see that is either new or different from years past, we'll always highlight that for our principals, that they'll bring that to their teams in one of those two opening days for them at the building level.
Okay, and then as far as the high school, we have someone that's already like ordering the supplies, the cell phone caddies. I guess it's
Yep.
really, where I'm going is it's very important there's no misses.
Correct.
Specifically with the cell phone policy, everybody needs to
We,
follow it if it's gonna work.
At 100%. We literally had another meeting today on the implementation. What does that look like? Making sure the caddies, every piece of equipment that we need from a caddy standpoint is secured and updated. Amanda and her team from the facilities is all on it. Referrals, all of those pieces. So we were doing exactly what you were asking for this morning, kind of checking bases. We'll get back together as a group again, and then we will talk about it a little bit during summer fun time with the admin.
Okay.
Any other questions for Aubrey? All right, that was the only thing we had on the agenda for tonight on the policy side of things.
Okay, so then we'll adjourn at 5:02.
suicide. It's their stuff. So like, why are we creating it ourselves? And it's free. It's free. Yes, because it's supported by a foundation. And they do this with tons of school districts across. I don't know how nationwide they are, but it's definitely Illinois. So, just a side paper. I think the plan is like how this happened is like maybe, and that's what we want. I think is a show next year and do like a filming. So then maybe we and somebody from the middle school join the plan and conversation. What do you think about tier? That's a bigger lift. So like that's what I'm thinking about. It's like, right. That's the team. Right, but like, I mean, so I like, let's have more conversation. But this is gonna happen. Universal tier one screening is going to happen. You may just need like a little bit of a Band-Aid for next year.
They already have, it's already worked in there somewhere, so the status quo is not. We just always get together. This could go.
Right. And then you guys could say, like, so if you do the plan, like the fall day is gonna be, and then the spring day is gonna be, so when we know there's lessons, then you can, let's say, so one up, content, other things, which is like, you guys can kind of like design around it, basically. So you know what it's like. Yeah, exactly. Good. This way. Right.
In the next year, it's just one day add on.
Right. Hey, how's it going? All the middle schoolers are like, we can do this good idea. Nice and less.
This is a fun day, keep going.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna be able to. It's all right, we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out later. Okay. Okay, all right, so planted that seed. So like tier one universal screening. Not next year, but this year.
they will, it'll see the, yeah, that's where we're gonna be. Join the club.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and officially kick off this May 19th, 2025 Learning and Teaching Committee meeting. We have 5 items on the agenda for discussion, and I believe without further ado, we will kick it off to Ms. Stahl to get it started.
Thank you very much. This evening, we're going to start with a little bit of a new process, if it's okay. We'd like to be able to bring back to you projects that we've brought in the past that we are making progress on, to let you know about the implementation success criteria thus far. Also let you know if there are any barriers or questions or concerns that we can answer at that time. They're really intended to be brief updates of where we are with those projects, typically after we've already spent a good deal of time with you, giving you background information and working through recommendations and board approval. So today we're going to start with 2 of those. We're going to give you an update on multilingual and the Access program as well. So I'll turn it over to Jared Buxton.
Good evening. Tonight, I want to give an update to the board regarding our team's progress on the implementation success criteria developed as part of our multilingual programming model. In March, the board approved administration's recommendation to implement in-classroom transitional bilingual education at Richmond and collaborative TBE at Munn Hall and Anderson. As part of the transition, administration established implementation success criteria to ensure that our educators had the training, resources, and professional learning experiences needed to be successful within the new instructional model. Our implementation success criteria is broken into different timelines based on urgency and appropriateness. On this first slide, you will see our progress for all of the criteria that needed to be implemented prior to the first day of school in August 2025. For example, our first implementation success criteria was to bring together a team to develop a professional learning timeline to meet the needs of our educators with this transition. This team commenced in March and was comprised of educators EC through high school, as well as building and district administration. The remaining 4 criteria on this slide are professional learning experiences for a variety of staff. The horizontal bars allow us to see our % complete for each implementation criteria. For example, during the time frame between April 29th and May 14th, our current dual language staff participated in multiple professional learning opportunities with the Wonders curriculum, including the online platform. 94% of our current dual language staff was able to participate in all of the necessary trainings. You will know there are a few of our implementation success criteria that are not quite at 100%. So we want to talk through the different ways between now and the start of school that we can support those educators that were not able to make the initial training. And we're really going to do that in 3 different ways. We're going to support educators by rescheduling some time over the summer, if it's just like a day or 2 training. We're also going to allow the educators who missed the chance to participate in the fall when we run a new cohort of that training. Or we're going to provide support through the collaborative TBE coach who was able to attend the trainings and support them side by side. Please note that the 0% for the vocabulary surge is due to the fact that that training does not occur until Thursday. The second slide previews the implementation criteria that will be emphasized once school resumes in the fall and will be ongoing throughout the first trimester. For these implementation success criteria, you will see a mix of training and professional learnings, but also instructional practice benchmarks, as well as criteria for unit pacing. We will return to the L&T committee meetings to continuously update the board on progress toward the implementation goals. As part of the multilingual status update, we will also provide information regarding the academic success criteria, which were also established during the March board meetings. For our academic success criteria, we have established indicators for each of our 3 trimesters next year, as well as an annual goal for our Spanish-speaking multilingual cohort. We will provide the board with our first status update regarding the academic success criteria in November. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Board, any clarification, any questions?
Okay, we'll move on next to give you a similar update regarding
Good evening, nice to see you all. This similar in regards to an update and really a brief update to let you know the action and the steps that we've been taking since we met with the board in April about the access transition from Anderson to Coron. I do want to first give a shout out as we start to look at this first slide to Nate Jarrett and Chris Blaskovitz, who worked really closely with Karen Pratt, and then with input from all of the team members, the teachers and the other supporting team members, as well as what we had heard from our families in March and April as we were stepping into this, put together activities to help us with this transition so we can be very student-centered and we can think about the different pieces that will help our students be successful in this transition to Coron. They have been very personalized with their actions, and as you'll see here, beginning April 14th, the activities that we've already done this spring to make sure that we could begin to welcome our families. Again, I will note that Chris Blaskovitz has absolutely embraced this every step of the way. She has been fantastic in reaching out to families, in offering opportunities for them to come to Coron, to get to know Coron, and this will continue, I have no doubt. So it's really been quite, I know Jared shares my experience in terms of us going for a little update at Anderson and seeing them working together and hearing all of the progress that is already being made. I really hope that this helps us as we step into the summer. And then I would turn your attention to that second slide where we will look into the summer and that will help us, well, that says fall. Is there one right before it? There we go, thank you. That will help us move as we move into the summertime. We are going to be making sure that we really, again, focus on those specialized and really personalized experience for our students and simultaneously help them with some orientation that will help the students get used to being at Coron, so there will be some opportunities for them to come and visit and experience what it feels like to be at Coron. And similarly, we will be working with our adults. We're tailoring our STAR autism support and professional learning so that it is specific to those new staff members who we will have involved. They will have a 2-day sort of professional learning experience that will differ from those staff members who will be our returning staff members. So we're differentiating that learning, and then also we'll have an opportunity for setting up their classroom during that time period and being able to make sure that they can implement the pieces that they're learning through our STAR autism supports. There will be a coach available to help them with that work as well. And that will happen, as you can see, at the end of July, very beginning of August. It's intentional to make sure that we can do it close to the beginning of the new school year to help them really be prepared and help them get their mind in gear as those new students will be there before them and the students who will be returning to us. And then as we step into the fall, we will continue our work with our STAR autism supports. I want to let you know that one of the things, and I think we heard some feedback about this from our board as well as from our parents, that we're focusing on that we had learned before from prior transitions like this, is to really make sure that we have opportunities for all of our educators at Coron to build upon their own learning. So there will be an opportunity in the summer, and then again as we step into the fall, to help with some of that learning about students who have neurodiversity and with whom we know we can do some things to really set up and establish our environments and our routines. So the learning becomes more broad, I guess, if you will, as we step into the fall and we help grow upon that experience. But then we will continue with our embedded classroom coaching for all of our students who are transitioning, and as well our students who are in our access program and in our other buildings across the district into the fall. And honestly, again, I just have to, my hat is off to our principals because I think they have been walking this walk with our families and our staff. They really care. I know this was a hard decision and very hard, and appreciated the board walking through it with us. they really care, and I think they're showing that, and absolutely hope that these efforts will make that difference for them as we, step into the fall and hopefully get everybody off to a good start. So, any questions?
Board? I'll just ask for just a quick question of clarification, and I agree. I think we've seen a lot of tough conversations with this, but necessarily so. And so my curiosity is, naturally, the principals are doing a great job. Has there been any shift from the families that were directly impacted by this decision? Are we seeing maybe a little bit more excitement now than we saw concern initially? Can you speak to that, or is it a little bit too early on in the process?
I think I can speak to it, although I don't want to speak for them in terms of their feelings. But what I can speak to is that in talking with Chris Blaskovitz and with Nate Jarrett, they are engaging in those conversations with them and with staff. And I would say that we're grateful for that. So quite honestly, we could understand some of their hard feelings that they were having. This is very difficult for them and for their students. And at the same time, that engagement and that collaboration is what we're seeing right now. So I hope that there may be some feelings of excitement as we get closer. I just don't want to speak for them. I can't be certain that that's the feeling. I really appreciate that question because I think the level of engagement is certainly encouraging.
Well, I have no doubt we'll continue that. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Appreciate it. I think unless there's other questions here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your light there.
Mr. Kuchar, can we go back to item A on the agenda? There was just something I wanted to come back to on slide 1
Absolutely.
of the multilingual discussion. Mr. Buxton, you talked about on slide 1, 4 different work steps, or 5 different work steps that needed to be completed. And there are a couple on there, item 3 and item 4, that have due dates that have either passed or are very close and percentages that are not 100%. And the question that I wanted to ask is, how much concern do you have associated with your ability to get those done? And is there something that you need from the board in order to move those closer to 100%?
I think what you just gave me is what I needed, because I don't think I have it represented accurately. We have until the first day of school to get those items done. And so the dates on there is the window in which the trainings occurred. So like the second one, 94%, there are multiple trainings in that 15, 16-day window, although we have until the first day of school. So that's where we're going to plan some for the summer, which that's one of our ways to catch up our educators that didn't get to 100, or let them run in the cohort in the fall, or connect them with the collaborative TBE coach who was present for the training.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Okay. I think that takes us on to item 2C, Title I, Schoolwide Plans for SY26.
So we will welcome up Dr. Tracy Taylor Moore, also Zach Minnelli, principal at Munhall, as well as Nate Jarrett, principal at Anderson, to talk us through our annual meeting of reviewing the school-wide plans for Title I. Also, we'll be looking for board approval so that we can follow through with that at the state level. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So each year we come before the board to share plans that lay out how our schools with an economically disadvantaged student enrollment greater than 20%, but less than 40%, intend to utilize Title I dollars to close achievement gaps and increase access to educational opportunities for the students in this group. So tonight we have 2 principals, Anderson Elementary School Principal Nate Jarrett and Munhall Elementary School Principal Zach Minnelli, who will be sharing their school's plans for utilizing Title I dollars in a school-wide fashion. Upon this board's approval of these plans, the waivers will be submitted to the Illinois State Board of Education to have Anderson and Munhall operate as school-wide Title I schools. Please note that a school with an economically disadvantaged student enrollment greater than 40% automatically qualifies for school-wide, and we do not have to apply for a waiver with the state for those schools. Oh, thank you. Okay, all right. So our outcomes for this evening, I'm going to start by sharing the purpose of applying to the Illinois State Board of Education for Title I school-wide waiver, and then share, Mr. Manelli and Mr. Jarrett will share their school-wide plans for their schools respective to Title I dollars for next school year. So as we go through tonight, you will see evidence of how we will be making sure that these core values are embedded in the plans that Anderson and Munhall have for their students. Belonging, perseverance, and achievement are at the heart of our work for all students, but especially for our students in these student groups where we know we need to pay particular attention to closing those achievement gaps. So for our strategic priorities, specifically tonight, I would say that effective collaboration, purposeful family and community engagement is powerful as it pertains to Title I, responsible and transparent stewardship of the resources, which is why we want to make sure that we come before you and say this is how we intend to support students with these Title I dollars. Looking at instructional coherence, especially equitable systems of support. How do we ensure that students are getting what they need to have the same or similar outcomes as students who are not a part of this student group? And then culture of dignity, equitable policies, programs, and practices. How do we structure ourselves to ensure, again, that students are getting the access to what they need? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of a school-wide status. A Title I school-wide program provides many different benefits or advantages. So the first biggest one is that there's flexibility in the way that we use the dollars. So schools can combine their resources, combining federal dollars, state dollars, and local dollars so that we can serve all students at the school and redesign the school and its services. And all students are eligible to use any materials that are purchased, any resources that are purchased. Teachers who we choose to hire could be used to support not just a certain sub-student group, but can support that student group as well as other students. As far as accountability, school efforts are clear and coordinated. All students are responsible for achieving the same high standards. And then there's unified goals. So when the Title I dollars are being utilized in a school-wide fashion, the school-wide program brings parents, community members, and the school together to redesign and improve the school. Each year, the school needs to take a look at the plan that they had from the previous year, meet with community members, parents, school team to determine what do we want to do as next steps for the next school year, and to see what could be changed, what needs to be added, what should be shifted so that you can so they can have the dollars be supporting students' goals for the next school year. So this slide just wants to give you a little orientation into how Title I dollars are allowed to be utilized. The biggest thing is that these dollars are designed to supplement and not supplant district funds. So they can't cover the cost of something that would already be accounted for or should be accounted for in district budgets. As an example, a classroom teacher, each grade obviously would need a certain number of classroom teachers based on the ratios that we've set forward as a school district. That would have to be paid through district dollars and not from the title dollars. The title dollars are designed to enhance and be a supplement and not to supplant. They may be in use to increase instructional supports, attendance efforts, improve the school climate, counteract and prevent bullying, provide counseling, mentoring, school-based mental health programs, or provide positive behavior interventions and supports. These are all of the big buckets that the Illinois State Board of Education allows for these dollars to be utilized. So this graph here is just designed to show you that for this school year, we had these three buildings moving into SY26 that we are looking to have be school-wide. Richmond is already over that 40% threshold of students who come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. So they're an automatic school-wide designation, and it's just Anderson and Munhall that are below the 40 but above 20%, which we are applying for the school-wide waiver. So just to kind of let you know how the process goes, as I've shared, it's schools that have greater than 20% low-income students, but less than 40% can apply for the school-wide waiver. The waiver does not change the amount of money we receive, it just changes how we're allowed to use the dollars. So we do not have the dollars yet allocation for SY26. So when we create these plans, we have to base it off of the dollars that we had in the current school year in anticipation that we will have a similar amount of dollars provided to us for the upcoming school year. The state usually gives it to us around June, July, and sometimes August, but at present, we do not have the actual allocation for SY26. So their plans are based off of our SY25 dollars, which was $496,764. And then we must have board approval for a school-wide plan prior to submission to the state for their approval. And so Mr. Minnelli and Mr. Jarrett are going to touch upon these two things. In their school-wide plans, they must address the following items. How will the school-wide waiver allow them to use the funds to benefit all students while continuing to provide high-quality instruction and close the achievement gap for the students of that economically disadvantaged student group? And then how will their plan meet the educational needs of the building to receive school-wide status? What's the benefit to students? What's the benefit to teachers?
Dr. Taylor, if I could interject for just a moment here. This is a question that I've asked historically during these meetings as well, but just for those who may have never heard the question, what is the likelihood that these requests would be denied, given that we meet the threshold of 20% or higher? What is the likelihood that the schools would be denied that funding?
I've never had experienced them being denied. It's just kind of the process that the state goes through to make sure that there's local agreement of the plans that the schools are setting forward, and then from getting that agreement from the board, then they go ahead and kind of stamp it themselves.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move into Anderson's proposed school-wide plan for their Title I dollars. I will turn it to Mr. Jarrett.
All right, one of my favorite topics, Anderson Elementary School. As you can see, it is great to work with a team of people. I certainly do not do this at all alone. I am smart enough to know, because my wife reminds me, that to surround yourself with great people. So when we're working at Anderson, thinking about how we can improve learning for all kids, and especially our students who come from a low socioeconomic status, it involves, of course, a team made up of our instructional support coach, specialists, EL teachers, and I think it's nice to highlight that we have a number of parents who join us. In addition to just this formal team, just the voice that I hear from our PTO is another voice, where every PTO meeting I'm able to share out just highlights from the school, things we're working on, challenges we're facing, what we're doing, and I get a lot of good feedback, encouragement from that parent representative group as well. So, but this is our Anderson School Title I team. And really, our focus, you guys, is not oversimplified, but it's very simple. We're focusing on reading and math growth for all students. Right, that is our charge. That's what gets us up in the morning, and it's an important work. It's challenging work, but that's what we do, and we get to celebrate that growth and work hard on the challenges that it faces. So the Title I funds allow us to do that better, allow us to serve more kids in the way that our team feels can help everyone. So having an extra interventionist over the past several years, it's looked different over the past several years based on how those funds have come in, but having a certified staff member or a paraeducator who's able to join our team to help students at all different grade levels. Specifically, we utilize them during their WIN time, or their enrichment and intervention time, that allows us to help all kids. It's also allowed us that when those additional staff members join that team, it really allows us to give kids truly what they need, not just in an intervention for reading or math interventions, but because there's just additional staff, we're able to give kids enrichment opportunities as well. And to truly help all kids, regardless of where they're at, hit that stretch goal. That's our goal for reading and math. Having math and reading tutoring options is very helpful when we can hand select kids that just really need that extra time and utilize that before school, after school, and even in the summer. We've utilized Title I funds to do that, and we're continuing to do that this summer as well, thanks to these Title I funds. And because of the school-wide status that we've always been able to get, we're able to help the kids who need it, and we don't have to hand pick who may or may need it based on a label. We're able to hand pick who needs it based on their need, on their reading and math need. And then also just, it's helpful to have the reading and math classroom materials, anything we need, anything those teachers need, anything those families need to help reinforce what they're doing in school. Title I funds, school-wide status can really help us accomplish that. And, there is a gap between the progress toward our annual stretch growth, the median annual stretch growth for our economically disadvantaged students, our EL students, and our students who receive special education. There is a gap. We talk about that, we look at it, we evaluate it, we measure it. That gap matters to us. And so having Title I school-wide status allows us to address that gap for everyone and create the systems and embedded structures that matter in a school system, and not just kind of like pick and choose. We really are working on improving the systems and the instruction and the collaboration and the professional development for everyone, and that really just lifts everybody. And those numbers, that was not a typo, they're both 34%. Just our most recent iReady, there are still 34% of our students, just based on our recent iReady, that are not where we want them to be. And the Title I status allows us to focus on those students, peel those layers back, find out who those kids are, make sure that our systems are working so every kid can reach that stretch growth. And we don't stop until it's done. And Title I dollars just keeps helping us do that better.
Last question. So thank you for that. So my first question, so if we're at 34% below grade level today, so what is your target? Where do you want, how much of the gap are you looking to close?
Great question, man. How much time do you have, right? No, but I don't mean to minimize your question. The goal is everybody, and that's not.
Well, right, but that's not practical, so.
Right, so we want to set rigorous and attainable goals. So we want to see that, and we look at this at a lot of different angles, as I think we should. We want kids to be able to, the way we talk about it is we want them to kind of change lanes. If they started the year in a 1 year grade level below, well, man, we want them at least we want them to move maybe half a year grade level below by the end. We want everyone to kind of keep moving into a different lane, changing like from where they started to where they ended. And we use iReady a lot as one of the factors, and we really are working towards kids hitting their stretch growth. So if they can meet their stretch growth 2 years in a row, then we're making significant impact and changing and minimizing that 34%. I haven't answered your question yet in terms of like what specific goal is.
No, because, so let me ask it, that you're the leader of Anderson.
Yeah.
So how do you know that the things that you're doing are making an impact?
Yeah. When we have students, the way we've measured this in the past, when we have students who are fully engaged in all of the interventions and the tutoring and the things that we're investing in, and we compare their growth rate to the students, to the average growth rate of that cohort of students, and that is at a higher rate, we're saying, we're saying they're learning at a higher rate than the average of their grade level because they're doing all these things. And when they are, that we're like, that's a success for that student and that group of students. And when they're not, well, then we need to circle back and think about that. So we often will look at the rate in which they're growing and as compared to their same age, same grade level, like the third grade average, right? But if Johnny is receiving a lot of these services, but he's growing at a rate that's higher than the third grade average, that's catching him up, meeting that stretch growth, then we consider that a success for him.
Ms. Fairgrave, can I jump in here on your question? Because your question made me think of something. Perhaps there's an opportunity for us and team to look at how we've historically utilized this funding and what has kind of moved the needle with the educational outcomes. Where have we utilize this for the various services that we've talked about and what seems to have the largest impact on those student outcomes. And we can use it both historically and then moving forward. We can use that as a measure of how we're spending these dollars and what is actually making measurable differences for these students. I think it would be an interesting exercise for us to see, again, how it's been done, and then maybe there's some opportunity for us to be real specific and intentional with that usage of that funds so that we know that we can make some differences, especially with some of the iReady data that I think we all want to see improve. Mrs. Fairgrave, am I getting somewhat near what you were thinking?
Yeah, I'm just curious as we, go into next year, how does Mr. Jarrett know if he's making any progress in closing the gaps? And I understand there's many different variables, but I think you have to land on something that's gonna say, okay, yes, I know that by adding the interventionist and this, that, yes, I've closed the gap. Whatever the measure is, I don't know if it's the percentage that are, below grade level, and I'm not sure. That would be up to you to determine what's most appropriate, but that's what I'm trying to get to, how do you know what you're doing?
We obviously don't take like sample groups of students who need support and give them nothing, right? Compared to the kids who are getting something and then compare them. That would be like a nice scientific, we'd never do that. But what we do, but like, I guess what I explained was we compare them to whatever, like whether it's an average or the typical child is making this much growth. The students who are receiving these extra program support services, tutoring, they're growing at a higher rate than we consider that a success. Anything where they're reaching that stretch growth is we're closing that gap and we're shrinking that 34%.
So Mrs. Fairgrave, what we'll bring back next month, or at the board meeting when we go for this approval, is what is that percentage in the stretch growth? Because as we've talked before about stretch growth, that's the growth that we must sustain. We can't continue to achieve just the typical growth. So remember when we spoke about this typical growth versus stretch growth. For our young people who are this far behind, we have to be hitting those stretch growth or they will never achieve that grade level status. So we will bring you back a percentage of students who will be achieving that to be able to hit the targets that you're talking about.
Okay, and I would think, because I appreciate these are part of the reason we're doing this, right?
Yep.
Is so as every student. But I would think we would be able to segment out, right? Because the economically disadvantaged and so forth, so that we know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll pull it exactly how we have it listed here from the economically disadvantaged to ensure that we can see where are we at on that percentage. Did we hit our targets that we wanted to with stretch growth for us?
Yeah,
Thank you for
and that's certainly, if
Yep.
that's your metric, again, it's not for me to
Correct.
opine on the metric, but whatever you guys decide.
Thank you.
And then my only other question then, how many interventionists, those are different than our reading and math specialists?
Yeah, so our school, different schools have a different number of reading specialists that are assigned to them through District 303 funds.
Yeah.
And Title I schools, based on the funding and how much is received from the state of the year, then often we're hiring additional interventionists. Often we call them interventionists. It gives us flexibility to use them for math or reading, depending on kids' needs in different years. Sometimes they're more heavy in math or reading, so that we just call them interventionists. And we hire the right people who have experience and background and certifications and to do that, help kids learn. Do
we have any on staff constantly, or are they always fund-driven?
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the nature of the Title I cycle, the funds, often they are released and rehired and released and rehired.
Okay, so we just have one?
At different years, based on the funding, we've had, I can just speak for Anderson, different times we have between 1 and 2, and then like I also said, a number of paraeducators been in the funding. There's also flexibility in terms of how many hours a day, the days of how if they work half of a school year, when the funding comes from the state. So there's flexibility that we just work with what we have to get the most tools in place. Yep.
Thanks.
Just building on Ms. Fairgriev's previous point, when we look at the 37%, and I know we're going to work across 2 different school years here, but 37% low-income students at Anderson and 34% below grade level. We know a couple of different things, both in reading and math, 34 and 37 different numbers. So we don't have one-to-one performance challenges, meaning 100% of the low-income students are not exclusive in that 34% who are underperforming and so or have opportunity for greater improvement. So when we talk about those stretch goals, I think it's really important to look at the population as a whole, but also to narrow in on that low-income student percentage. I appreciate the application of resources school-wide and the focus of those resources being on, the 34% who have the opportunity to improve to grade level. At the same time, those school-wide enhancements have to be additionally beneficial for all of those low-income students for whom the funds were originally allocated. So when we get back to that conversation, how we look at the growth rate for the low-income students in excess of the mean growth rate, I think is an important factor.
We'll consider those pieces in there because I would agree with that. There are differences within those overall numbers that we have to be able to pull apart and ensure that we're monitoring the students with the precise needs and what, not like you, but the label in which they carry. Thank you.
I have a question about what's changed from this current school year to what you're planning for next year. I know part of your exercise is to talk to all of the people on your team, and I wonder if there's anything that is on this list for 25-26 that wasn't there last year or that's changed.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is a lot of it has to do with how much we receive and when we receive it to help us really make some significant changes. What some of the things that are certainly staying the same that we have heard from parents that they really value is that extra opportunities for tutoring, the materials that are coming home that we're able to connect with them and empower them with those materials at home to reinforce us in the classroom. And then, of course, when we're able to explain to them during this part of the school day, your son or daughter is going to be able to receive this extra support and so forth through the interventionist. In terms of what's like significantly different for next year, that a lot of times we will write, like even at this point, write things broad enough so that we have some flexibility in how and when we do that. So I guess the major differences are in the details of how and when all of these things happen. Yeah.
Good evening. Zach Manelli, Principal Munhall. So the next slide really just shows you the team members that were supporting me throughout this plan. So just like Mr. Jarrett, a very wide range of staff and parent input. So tons of different perspective, which really helps when you're creating a plan like this because it can be, you have a ton of different options and routes you can go. So it's important for us to really look at our entire, school and see what we can do to help our kids the best. Through analysis, we really, noticed a couple things. We still did have an educational gap in both ELA and math in regards to, our general education students and then, our subgroups of special education students and English language learners. We also really noticed that social and emotional behavior piece. We have a great system of recording our behavior referrals. So through that and our special education minutes reflected within our IEPs, we do think that SEL obviously has an impact on our students' academic achievement as well. So those were two pieces we looked at. And there were some celebrations, right? We have noticed through, the two things I'm going to talk about, the Title I educator and some more funds for an additional social worker. We noticed some growth in our ELA and math throughout our I-rated diagnostics and IER data last year. So it's kind of like two things that we identified we think have an impact on what is working. So just to continue that. So similar to Nate, right, when we talk about our Title I educator, really just, designed to support through Tier 1 instruction in both math, ELA. It helps reduce the student-teacher ratio in both of those subject areas. So, something we like to do, because like Nate said, that educator is sometimes being hired in October, November. So at that point, we do have, we have data from the current school year. So we're able to, pinpoint a couple of classrooms that we think can use that consistent support, because it's not gonna be realistic for that one person to potentially get into, each classroom. So that's something we do, and we rotate that, right? That's super responsive to units, modules, and just depending how, what our classroom data looks like. They also become a member of those professional, our PLCs, and also, like I said, just responding to, evidence of student learning through our PLC process. And that also goes along with analyzing, our quick checks, and then through our iReady diagnostics. Like I also touched on, partial funding for another social worker. So this year we were able to have a social worker, an additional social worker at our building 4 days a week. I think I've had that every year that I've been at Munhall. I'm finishing up my 3rd year. So that, social worker provides direct service minutes to special education students through their IEP, Tier 1 building-wide social and emotional learning at Munhall. Just an additional resource, honestly, with the knowledge to help our students. And obviously, their priority there is to support students with those special education minutes. But there are countless times throughout the year when they are just a support to any kid in our building. When a parent reaches out to myself or one of them, and then just continue to build relationships with staff, parents, guardians, which supports obviously their implementation of the IEP. Are there any questions before Tracy finishes up?
Board?
Yeah.
Do you have a full-time social worker
Yeah,
today?
so we have 1.8 technically with the support of social work, so.
With this additional, you'd have 1.8?
We have one full-time social worker, and then this addition is 0.8.
Gotcha, okay. And then my other question, back to the addition of the educator.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking at basically kind of a list of some job responsibilities
Yeah.
there, how much do you anticipate they're actually going to be working with kids and part of the educator process? So that first bullet, basically.
I mean, that's really like Nate said, we really, to best use funds, we can get super cute with their hours. So for example, arrival and morning meeting, we typically wouldn't have them start till 9:40, 10 o'clock. So then when they're present, they're with kids and learning versus if they came, not that they couldn't help during morning meeting, but that's whole classroom time and same with they don't need to necessarily work the last 15 or 20 minutes. That's just an example. But when they're there, they're in classroom, and obviously they get a plan if they want, but it's a super helpful job because they're just, they work with the reading specialist, math specialist, myself to create a schedule that gets the best bang for their buck, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Taylor, before you wrap it up, just a quick question for you. So, and this may be for you, Mr. Buxton, as well. So as we work with the intradistrict transfer process, are there any schools that could potentially be at or near that threshold as student body changes for that population?
We are currently about 3-4 days into the intradistrict transfer for elementary school. We currently have 37 waivers that have been submitted. I have not taken, for full transparency, I have not taken a deep dive into those waivers. It looks like the waivers are both exiting each building, but also coming to every building, which is a great, where you don't have it slanted one way or the other. But yeah, at this point, we do have 37 applications submitted, and that window is open through the remainder of June. But with the changes that we made last year, with any waiver that was approved last year, cover the duration of their elementary years. I'm not suspecting that we'll have too many more come in. If it tracks with last year, typically by the end of the first week, 90 to 95% of the waivers have been submitted.
So to answer your question in full, no, we would not anticipate the interdistrict transfer process pushing one school over that percent to achieve Title I status.
In the event that unforeseen circumstance were to occur, would we be able to still apply for that funding if one of the?
Yes, we could.
Thank you.
Just doing so would then obviously shift the amount of dollars that are available to the current school, so we just have to think about that. We want to think what is the best way to go about dividing that, and we usually use a per pupil number of students that would qualify for that free and reduced lunch to allocate how the dollars are split between the schools that qualify.
Well, and
Yeah, unfortunately, the pie doesn't get any bigger.
Right.
It's just
Correct.
split up one more time.
Yeah, and last. Okay, other comments and questions?
Are we finished off this agenda topic? Are we moving to the next one? Or, Dr. Taylor, did you have additional comments?
My comment was to put the recommendation forward to you. That's my only comment, and
Well,
my
let me-
clicker's not working, so.
Let me grab my question. So we're talking about a waiver that allows the buildings to apply the Title I funds at the building-wide level. What percentage of the schools across the state who fall within that 20 to 40% low-income population apply for the waiver?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I could find that out and get that back to you.
Yeah, the percentage is, it could be small, medium, and large. And the reason I'm asking is there a better management technique than applying for the school-wide waiver for the use of the funds? Is there a benchmark out there that we should be looking at that says some schools skip the waiver process and apply the funds differently than we do here? And if the answer is 100% of the schools that have populations of low-income students between that 20 and 40 apply for the waiver, that's a pretty big indicator that we're following a best practice. If there's a couple of really high-performing schools with high percentages that fall within that 20 to 40% that are doing something different, maybe we ought to be looking at them. And if not for this year, then certainly for next year.
We will
I
look
think
at that
that's-
and
Yes, I think
we'll
that's a
get
great
that to the
thing for
board.
us to consider. I would imagine that the state has put forward that opportunity for a reason, so, but I would see, we can go back and see what percentage of school districts are actually taking up the state and utilizing in that fashion. Thank you for that. So that brings us to the recommendation. So we are recommending that the board approve school-wide Title I plans for SY26 for Anderson and Munhall Elementary Schools at your June 9th regular school board meeting. And if there's any additional questions, we'll take them at this time. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Okay, that'll give us an opportunity to shift to our next agenda item for discussion, item 2D, grades 6 through 12, health resource recommendations. We'll welcome a few new individuals to the table here. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Who's going to be kicking us off here?
As we get started, I'll have the team introduce themselves in just a moment. Grade 6 to 12 health. One note, we don't want to assume that you know what health looks like in our schools. At the middle school level in grades 6, 7, and 8, our students all take 3 6-week health courses. So 1 in 6th, 1 in 7th, 1 in 8th grade. And then at the high school level, students take a semester-long health course, typically freshman year, but sometimes sophomore year. So when our team talks today about the curricular resources that they looked at, the way that they have applied that to this work, please know that it is impacting all of our students at the grades 6, 12 range, and that a lot of thought has gone into the fact that this affects every student. I'll turn it over to the team so that they can introduce themselves and kick it off.
I'll start. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Monica Bailey. I'm the Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
I'm Dan McFerrin. I'm one of the TOSAs for the district with the Learning and Teaching Department.
Jason Potter, the Wellness Department Chair at St. Charles East.
I'm Christy Harrier, the Wellness Department Chair at St. Charles North.
And I am Jason Skirty. I teach health and PE at Red Lane, and I'm the PLC leader there as well.
We are excited to be here tonight to bring forward our health CAI recommendations. As always, our work really throughout our process is grounded in our core values of belonging, persevere, and achievement. And you'll see instances of that throughout our presentation tonight as well. In terms of our strategic priorities, we're really leaning into effective collaboration and instructional coherence, of guaranteeing and of having a guaranteed and viable curriculum that uses evidence-based instructional practices that help support our PLCs and really improving student learning and moving that needle forward for our students. Tonight, as we look at our middle school and high school health CAI committees and their work, it was very evident that a change was needed. Our high school resource was published in 2007. We also have a middle school resource that is also outdated. And really without those updated resources, our educators were left to find resources that were accurate and up to date on their own. So we really wanted something that they could lean into and use for their day-to-day instruction. I do also want to note that there is a piece here with our instructional mandates from the Illinois State Board of Education in terms of compliance with them, as they are pieces that we are required to teach per ISB. And really thinking through this process to help, as I mentioned, to help our educators throughout this, we are recommending high-quality resources that align with both our state standards and our instructional mandates, and really help define an age-appropriate health curricula across all curriculum, or across all classrooms that is consistent. If we zoom out a little bit, there are some past actions that really have informed our work. In 2022, in the summer of 2022, as a board, you engaged in conversation and approved board policy, which informed the direction of our work. Between that time and into this school year, the Illinois State Board of Education has also introduced additional instructional mandates. And all of this information, as well as our outdated resources, have really led us to forming a CAI team, developing a 612 cohesive vision, and reviewing and field testing resources, which led us to our recommendation this evening. And I will hand it over to Mr. Potter and Mrs. Harrier.
I do want to say our work has been grounded in our state standards. Our state standards are broken into 3 areas, and these goals do not exist in isolation. They are very much interconnected. We have goal 22 that talks about health promotion and prevention, where students learn how to take care of their health, avoid getting sick or hurt, and understand how to treat illnesses and injuries. This includes topics like hygiene, nutrition, exercise, safety, and disease prevention. We have goal 23, which focuses on body systems and development, which means students explore how the body works and what things like diet, exercise, and sleep affect these processes. And then state goal 24 talks about effective communication and decision-making skills, where students practice skills to make smart, healthy choices and to communicate clearly with others, including problem solving, setting goals, and saying no to unhealthy behaviors, so really kind of building on developing refusal skills.
The next slide kind of gives a visualization of just about how many mandates that we are required. So our subject is kind of unique in the fact that that's a huge list and it's ever changing. So not only are we grounded in the state standards, but the legal aspect of what we're required through ISB definitely has a huge influence on what we teach and how we teach it. And particularly picking our resource, one of the main reasons we landed where we did was that this resource was the only one that got into the depth that was required by ISB. And if you look, the ones that are highlighted, those are the ones that are new. This resource that we've chosen gets into the depth and gives the resource that we need to make sure that we get all the way into as deep as we need to for ISB and to hit that state mandate. But this resource also stays up to date with any new mandate that comes out. So in a wonderful world, these are our mandates moving forward. I just don't foresee that's the case because things are always changing, especially in what we do, the health world. Things are constantly evolving and changing in the recommendations. So just makes it a little bit more important for us that we had a resource not only to support and give our students this, but also to support our teachers in the fact that they don't need to go out and try to fulfill this mandate on their own. This resource provides them the tools in order to do that.
All right, then our first matter of business was creating a health vision that would guide our work in grades 6 through 12. So our vision is centered around evidence-based practices about the role and purpose of health education. At the core of health education is providing students with the knowledge and skills necessary to live healthy and just basically apply health-enhancing behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs to live a healthy lifestyle. And then this vision will help to communicate with stakeholders, guide instructional practices for educators and professional learning, and then articulate a common vision for our students and staff.
These are the committee members that got together, and we just wanted to take an opportunity not only to show them, but also to thank them. This is a heavy lift, especially since there hasn't been that resource in the past that was up to date, and they've been longing for it. And the teachers in our district are very excited about having a resource to help support them and their students. And the teachers that volunteered to help us with this heavy lift were very passionate and really put in the work and dug into this. So we thought it would be important to thank them and introduce them to you.
Our field test process follows the same pattern as our recent resource adoptions. It was very highly collaborative, making sure educators and students had what they needed to engage with the resources. As someone who's been in the district for years, I would say it was a pretty awesome hands-on experience that definitely we appreciate being able to bring this in the classroom and really try it out to see how it worked. As I'm sure you've heard in the past, it really allowed us to make the most informed decision to make sure we recommend the right resource through a consensus building process. So this will allow educators to focus on the how and the why rather than the what.
One of the things that we'd also like to bring forward are some implementation success criteria to help make sure we have a clear and measurable framework to determine if our work was achieved or if it reached those intended outcomes. Specifically, 100% of our middle school and high school students will not only have access to a high-quality resource that addresses our Illinois state standards and our instructional mandates, we will also have 100% of middle and high school students engaging with informational texts related to health topics. We want to recognize that opportunities to build those health literacy skills will really help them evaluate health information and make informed choices, and that increasing focus on informational text comprehension and access to that, we can continue to foster those cross-curricular goals, those literacy goals, which will help prepare students to access assessments like the ACT. We do note that we will embed ongoing professional learning to help support that piece. The instructional strategies for informational text will be included within our unit launches throughout the school year. And our CAI, our unit writing teams, will also identify and include informational text as part of their curricular work. 100% of our middle school and high school families will also receive clear and accurate information regarding the opt-out process as at the beginning of each health course. And then 100% of our middle school and high school health educators will engage in ongoing professional learning to ensure alignment with our standards, our mandates, and instructional practices on informational texts. We also have a timeline that is associated with our implementation success criteria. By the very first day of school, August 13th of this coming school year, students will have access to that resource, whether print or digital. By July 1st, we'll also have that opt-out, that documentation finalized, ready to go for our health educators, so they are ready to rock and roll on day one. Our unit writing teams, our CAI, will have all of that work done by August 8th. And then we will engage in our first unit launch, our curriculum launch, by August 22nd to make sure staff, our teachers, our educators are well-equipped to start the year on the right notes and that they have the tools necessary and available to them. Throughout next school year, we will also engage in unit launches. We'll have 3 unit launches at the middle school level, which will be completed by January 9th, depending on that 6-week rotation is really what informed that date. And then we'll see 4 high school unit launches as well, which will be completed by December 12th. And last but not least, the high school recommendation includes both digital student and teacher access for 6 years and 35 print books per high school if needed. The middle school recommendation includes print text for students. That's about 3 class sets per middle school, as well as digital teacher access for 6 years. And the high school CAI team also identified some additional needs that were really informed by their instructional mandates. Their current CPR mannequins are starting to deteriorate and fail. They're needing some replacement there. And then purchasing trainer AEDs and EpiPens will also help meet the instruction of the mandates. Professional learning will include unit writing and unit launches, as well as curricular revisions to make sure we are meeting the needs of students. And the total financial impact is $141,722.90.
Before we move from page 3, should we read the rows as a total cost for 6 years or a per year cost? And then
We cannot go back. Oh, no. Those rows specifically, thank you. Those rows are for example, the $88,413.19 is the cost for 6 years.
Okay.
So it's a total.
So it's not a per year cost.
Correct.
The second question is, should we expect then that the L&T team will come back not before 6 years from now for the next health curriculum update?
As in an update as to this implementation or overall?
No, we're buying a 6-year license or a 6-year program, so the question is, do you anticipate the necessity for another expenditure sometime before the expiration of that 6 years?
What we would anticipate is that because we have, for instance, at the high school, the digital access, that's a living, breathing access, so that could be updated on the part of the publisher during that time. Our print resources, while they meet all of the mandates currently, we all live with ISB, and of course, there could be additional mandates that we add. Doesn't necessarily mean that we need to buy an entire new resource. It could mean that we need a supplement in order to meet that need if it's deemed appropriate. But to throw out the resource and start over would not be something we'd anticipate.
In terms of the latest items that we had, mandates, does that mean, were we behind on implementing them?
Yes and no, and Dan McFerrin and I are looking at each other. We've had this conversation. We have been teaching mandates. I don't know that we have been teaching them in the depth to which that ISB would have liked those taught. I think it's been a goal of ours, and this team has worked incredibly hard over years to try to match that. Once again, as Dan had mentioned, teachers were going out and trying to find things in order to meet those mandates. And this is going to bring that all to fruition. Go ahead, Dan, feel free to add.
No, you said exactly what I was going to say.
Jason, Christy, Jason, it was that accurate on when you don't have that guaranteed and viable curriculum, what does that look like for a classroom teacher who's doing this every day?
I would say that is a lot of extra planning. Like, that's where my time was. There was no resource, there was nothing. I created things from scratch. I had the targets, and I was just coming up, trying to figure out different resources to use, which is a lot of time used.
I think it also, one of the pieces that I appreciate about the process they all went through, especially when you're considering the health, some of the areas of health. What I appreciate is we have a consistent approach to how we're having these conversations and setting our educators up for success in those areas, as opposed to going on and trying to find your own resources and adding that. So Jason has it this way, somebody else has it over at Thompson in another way. So that's the piece for me as a superintendent that I take great, that allows us to breathe a little bit more when we have that consistency. And quite honestly, for me, it's the support for our educators to have that type of material in front of them so they can do the planning that they were talking about.
Yeah, I think definitely, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that definitely is great. And so that's a move forward. So, Ms. Stolt, like we've talked about reestablishing those curriculum review cycles and kind of having targets. So just even based on these two here, is this going to be at least on an annual review cycle, at least just to say, oh, yeah, we've had some new mandates and,
Yeah, that's a great
What are your
question.
thoughts?
Yeah, so we do, even though we may only come to you every several years to approve a resource, we do have, and we are also refining a more cyclical process to look at many things. I appreciate your question because it specifically speaks to the mandates, but even the other pieces within curriculum, for instance, how are we instructing? What are we finding that we tried with this resource or instructionally that did or didn't work is all part of an annual cycle. What's nice is that there are people like Dr. Bailey at L&T that also are sort of our curators of some of those things over time so that we can make sure on an annual basis we are looking at them, whether they be small or large. We also get feedback from the ROE, we get feedback from teachers so that we're sure that we're working on the most recent information about what's expected.
In this resource particularly, one of the good things about it, it is staying up to date. It's living, it's breathing. When there is a new mandate, they're going to roll something out for the mandate. So it's kind of an extra check and balance to the fact that, we don't have to search to see if there's a new mandate and then panic and get together and try to figure out how we're going to handle it. In the past, that's how we've had to handle it because we didn't have a choice. Now, it's not going to be like that because the resource, hopefully, that we have is going to then add it and have it and the tools and resources. And in some of them particularly, you need an assessment now, like the fentanyl one. It's not just teach about it at the high school level, at least. You have to have an assessment that covers this. We don't have to develop that. This resource provides that so that then we're not just checking the box of the mandate, we're actually fulfilling the mandate.
Thank you.
I have a question related to the companion text versus the standard textbook. Can you talk about what's included in there and why that's important?
Sure. There are pieces within the standard, the essential health skills for either high school or middle school that do cover a lot of our mandates and standards. We recognize that there are also some mandates and standards that aren't covered within that need to be covered within the human development and relationships companion text. For example, if we're looking specifically at our list of mandates, we'll see some pieces in there about human growth and development. That is one of our instructional mandates that we need to cover, and that really comes through in that companion text that does not come through in the essential health skills textbook.
And I see that there is the family life, including sexual abstinence. It says including, and so does that mean that that's one option? And how is that topic handled? And maybe talk a little bit about the opt-out portion as well.
Do you want to? Yeah, we have a lot of mandates that we have to find balance with, and we also will see within a lot of our mandates that there are some that are mutually connected to each other. So for example, we have the one that is about family life, which includes sexual abstinence. We also have a mandate that is about the prevention and control of diseases, including AIDS, for example. These are 612 mandates that we are required to include. So we find and strike that balance between how do we incorporate that and what is it that we how do we as a district, how do we as a curricular team define those mandates? And then that is then what is instructed on within the actual course itself. ISB is not very descriptive within some of their mandates, with the exception of the dangers of fentanyl at high school and the allergic reaction with anaphylaxis, with the signs of anaphylaxis. They're pretty vague, and it is just human growth and development. Family life, including sexual abstinence. There is no defined definition as to what that does or does not include. So we need to go through and identify what that work looks like and what we mean by that or don't mean by that.
The opt-out process too, one of the things we refined was some clarity around that so that at the beginning of each health course, that students would be able to take home something that explains what are those particular topics that are within this upcoming course that you can opt out of if you're a family that wishes to do so. So there's clarity about which ones those are, exactly how to move through that process, and that's upfront. So that parents can ask questions if they have it and make those choices ahead of time.
Do you have an idea of how many students within our population are actually opting out of a topic like that?
This school year, I can roughly speak to it's about 1 to 2 students per school year, if I remember correctly. So it's not a large number of students who are opting out of those topics.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Other questions? You actually took a couple of mine, so great questions right there. I'll just add one small question on top of that. Have we ever done an historical evaluation of the subject matter that has been opted out of? Have we seen if there's a particular trend? Is there a particular material that we see that families have a tendency to opt out of? And if the answer isn't readily available, perhaps we can bring that to the board at another time. Just be curious if there was certain subject matter where we were seeing maybe it was a lack of clarity as to what was required within that subject area, or the ambiguity, as you spoke to, of those mandates, and perhaps there's some misconceptions as to what it was covering, or maybe there was good reason and a trend for families to elect to opt out of that material. I'd be interested to see that.
We'll get that for you. Thank you.
Moving along then?
We're moving.
Okay. All right, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, as we shuffle around a little bit here at the board table, we will go to item 2E, Edmentum Renewal.
Aubrey Schuett is making her way back to the table. She'll be sharing information about the contract as well as how this particular tool and resource is used with students across the district.
Perfect. Thank you again for the introduction. So again, Aubrey Schuett, I serve as the Director of Student Services supporting our programming at our secondary schools. The Edmentum contract that you have in front of you today is a renewal. We have been partnering with Edmentum for over 10 years. It serves as the online platform for students that are seeking additional support. It could be through credit recovery. It could be maybe some unique individual circumstances that requires some temporary unique programming. For example, a student may be returning from a hospital program or placement, and so how can we help support them reintegrate themselves into the typical school environment in a supported fashion, so it may be used like that. It is also used in our summer school program that is currently housed over at Compass Academy. So again, if a student would need to recoup credit, they have the opportunity to do that. It is also utilized in our night school program, again, also housed over at Compass Academy. And again, a tool that I think is continuing to evolve over time. They do a really nice job of making sure that the curriculum stays up to date. And then we have a team of teachers who get together each summer, and we look at those curriculum updates, and then we do what we call like an alignment process where they sit together. So for example, let's take math. So we have several teachers from our high schools that support this work that are certified math teachers, and so they take a look at the curriculum that's presented for each particular course and by semester. So it could be, for example, Algebra 1, Semester 1. The team of teachers look at the way that that's outlined, and they do some moving and shaking and really kind of create alignment with how our teachers are delivering that same course and content in the traditional classroom to make sure that there's alignment in the event that a student would need to move from one environment to the next. It's not perfect by any means, but it creates the best opportunity for a little bit of fluidity in the event that we need that, or I should say a student needs that. So again, this is a renewal. Last time this contract was in front of the board. It was a 3-year renewal. We are asking for the board to consider and approve another 3-year renewal for the upcoming years. Any questions?
Was there any consideration for comparable resources?
That's a great question, yeah. The team has historically, through the years, looked at a number of other programs. What we're seeing is that Edmentum is actually purchasing, they're purchasing the other programs. Apex is a good example of that. I think it is the program that pretty much everybody in our surrounding area, all of the other districts in the surrounding areas are using. I'm pretty proud of the fact that we were one of the first districts to really kind of embrace Edmentum and bring it on, and then it's kind of trickled out there to our surrounding district partners, so, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Other questions?
I have a question. So if I'm reading this right, it's 349 licenses. Would that be equal to 349 users at any given time?
Yeah, that's
And is that what we're finding that we're using?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The way that it works is the user acts, it's kind of unique with Edmentum. So there can be that number of students in it at any given moment. So it's not necessarily like, yes, like you use it, it's assigned to Paul and he's used it and it's gone. It's more like 350 students could be in the program at any given moment. We've never, kind of reached that target, but it is good to have that bulk because of situations like summer school and things of that nature where we could get close to that. Does that answer your question?
It does. Was just making sure it's enough users
Yeah,
at any
yes,
given time? Or
yes,
are we
yes.
paying for perhaps 100 more users than the district is ever using at one time?
No, I think it's pretty spot on, and I would say historical with what the data is showing us. I think our last usage report showed approximately 247, I think is the approximate number, unique users that currently access the system this school year. And again, that would be either during the school day, it could be through night school, it could be through summer school. So it's kind of happening between east, north, campus. We have, there's middle school programming in there. We have some middle school students that may have unique circumstances that may be utilizing it too. So it supports a large group of friends. Yeah.
All set, board? Any other
Anything
questions?
else? Okay, great.
Thank you very
so
much. Appreciate it. Okay, moving right along. That takes us to item 3, adjournment, and item 3A, future agenda items.
Well, we'd like to, with your permission, continue to bring back some status updates for you. If there are particular ones that you would like to see up first, we are super open to that, so please let us know. Some of the ones that we have talked through are bringing you some curriculum updates on curriculum that's been done this year via implementation criteria, as well as you noted, Mrs. Fairgrieve, maybe giving some insight about the curriculum renewal process and where we are in that cycle as well.
Since our April Learning and Teaching meeting, we have 2 of the high school experience teams that have completed their committee work. And so we'll be bringing an update on June 16th, specifically related to college and career readiness and the conclusion of that committee, as well as the secondary time usage committee, along with the recommendations that they have moving forward to the next scheduling committee that will take place next year.
The only other item I have is I'm interested in the access program, or is that coming at business services?
The piece that you're looking at?
Yes.
Yes,
So like
the
future.
facilities. Yeah, the future of the facilities. We're going to touch on that beginning with the next business services meeting, I want to say the
Okay.
29th.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Well, before I adjourn, I'll just give a shout out to our graduates for this upcoming Thursday, May 22nd. Very exciting day for a number of students. I know from this board member's perspective, and I know others feel the same way, it's one of the most exciting days for all of us. So definitely looking forward to that this upcoming Thursday. And as Dr. Christensen mentioned, our next Learning and Teaching meeting will be June 16th. So we'll have some more invigorating topics for us all to discuss. And with that, we will adjourn at 6:50 p.m. Thank you.